So
Sweet.
let's break the commercial.
Got it.
I need to gather myself.
Yeah, I feel that. And for news of our sponsors.
Welcome to episode number whatever of Live from Dream Run Camp. We're coming at you from the Dream House in Flagstaff, Arizona. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening on demand in the year 2127, if Earth still exists then. Talk about tangents.
Yeah, I feel it. Hey, man,
It's like-
I've seen a 2001 Space Odyssey. We're closer than AP or 1984, Big Brother. We're getting there.
Yeah, I keep telling Lauren we're not going to be here in 6 months. But if we are,
keep saying 6 months,
yeah.
so it actually keeps getting pushed out.
yeah, we're doing all right. There's hope. So our guest this evening is one Tyler Day, former standout track and field and cross country runner at the local university, Northern Arizona University, NAU, the Lumberjacks. Go Lumberjacks.
Go Jacks.
And which is where one of our longest tenured dream runner, Kelly, who's sitting right over there, she will be attending NAU, God willing, in sports psychology very soon. This is part of like the master plan, developing a cult here. We'll be the survivors when the world ends in 6 months. Dream Run Camp. This is where you want to be.
A refuge.
Yeah. So it's kind of a survivalist thing with a running theme. Anyhow, so Tyler graduated from NAU and went straight to the local professional running team, or the biggest and best. I don't want to offend anyone. Hoka Northern Arizona Elite. Promptly got injured, then got injured again, and like we'll get into this a little bit. I mean, you're not running right now, and that's when I advertise these events, I put out a theme. We don't only have to talk about injury.
Hey, man, you're running the show, man. I'm just hoping I bring some context to it.
And some dad jokes.
I mean, I'm not a dad, but I could definitely bring some jokes.
You got dad jokes. Trust me.
Yeah, well,
I know you well enough at this point.
Well, I might have something on my sleeve, even though it's up to you. But...
Oh dear, those are very short sleeves. Not a lot of dad jokes. Anyhow, welcome, Tyler.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate being here. This is cool. It's a sweet little establishment you have here. But yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, and as I said, when I gave you the tour around the property, I certainly hope and expect this won't be your last time. Open door policy.
For
casa,
sure.
su casa.
For sure. You have a little secret knock sometimes, but if not, I could just barge in,
Yeah, it's a little more high tech than that. We got codes. We can
got it.
Like special,
yeah, that works too.
Special team code. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
It's not just like, it's not just 1111. I feel that.
Yeah. I feel like we finally arrived as a cult. When I get the first 3 a.m. NAZ runner, I just really need a hyperbaric chamber treatment. Like they just walk in, I'm semi asleep. I'll get the chime down in the casita. It's like, who is it? I can hear a buzzing. Someone's in the hyperbaric chamber. Could be you.
Yeah, could be me. Hopefully not at 3 a.m. Hopefully I'm sleeping, recovering. But desperate times call for desperate measures.
Yes. So let's before we get into injury, and just to set the table a little bit, we talked a little bit. This whole thing was teed up when you and I just shared some time in the waiting area at Hypo 2. You had an appointment with, was it AJ or Wes?
AJ. He's my man.
Yeah, he's the man. And yeah, so we just talked a little bit. I'm aware of what you've been going through, and on the one hand, I feel like God, I can relate so much because I was a constantly, continually injured runner for decades. On the other hand, I can't relate in the sense that you're a professional runner. So the stakes are just they're crucially different. So we'll get there, and just the idea is that this is a universal experience, and you have a lot to offer on that, because it might not feel like it always, but I think you're probably coping with it, dealing with it with a support team around you at an elite level, right? And therefore, because injury is a universal experience, you'll have something to offer. those listening. But rewinding from that, I'd like to start these conversations by asking how you were introduced to running. Was it
Got
the
it.
discovery of talent that came first, or falling in love that came first?
Got it. So I would say that how I got into running was I failed at every other sport known to man, at least uh, to my standards. If you ask my mom or dad, they're like, no, I did the darndest. But honestly, like I just wasn't going anywhere in any of the other sports. My dream growing up was to be a professional catcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I had dreams of being a D-back player, winning a bunch of World Series, being a Hall of Famer, and yeah, retiring super awesome, like, and being Cooperstown. But yeah, as the older I got, you could tell my upper body strength definitely filled in, and so bunch of people when I try to go out for my seventh grade baseball.
Dad joke number one.
when I try to go out for my seventh grade baseball team, yeah, I was just not. I did not have the gene pool winnings for that. People that were able to throw farther, that were taller and stronger than me, were able to make it to the team, and I was nowhere near close on making the cut. So that was kind of like really sad. But the year before, I did cross country because my sister, shout out to my sister Kendall, who is 2 years older than me, she did track and field before I did. So when I was in elementary school, she was in junior high. She mainly did shot put and discus, but I just saw people run on the track and I was like, that looks pretty cool. It'd be kind of cool to try it one day. And yeah, going into my seventh grade, my sister told me there's a sport called cross country. I was like, do we run across the state of Arizona? And she was like, no, you just run for a long time. And yeah, I went out for it my seventh grade year. Mr. Aragon, who was my social studies teacher, he called me Mr. Knight. Was like, yo, you want to try out for the team? And I was like, heck yeah. And yeah, my first race, I got third. And so I was like, yeah, I think I might be good at this. And then, yeah, I tried out for baseball, didn't make it. And I was like, well, I'm going to try out for track. And then since then, I've been a baseball fan ever since, but never tried to pursue it. But yeah, I think it's just the short term is just, yeah, I sucked at every other sport except for one, which is running away from my bullies. And I guess it worked out. So
Yeah, so lingering a bit on that, so those fantasies of greatness, and I mean, let's admit it. I mean, so many runners can relate to that. That was their experience, and it's not just. I mean, well, the reason you try every other sport first is that the other sports are more popular. They're considered more fun. So, I mean, to be talented at one sport is a beautiful blessing. It's just like there's a reason so many of us try running last, and that's like something with a ball and a team. It just
yeah.
seems cooler and more attractive. But it's interesting to me that you had these fantasies or visions of greatness in baseball, because I see that so often. Like, I just have a fascination with the minds of elite athletes, and you see that over and over and over. It's almost like the subterranean prerequisite, like even before talent or a gift for a sport. It's like that mentality. We're just like that yearning, to just have a gold medal draped around your neck and have the national anthem sung. So it's like, is that how you're wired?
I mean, if anything, it's good to have a drive. And I know this is very running centric, and I know this is all about sports, but just anything in life. Like, you don't have to be an athlete to have a drive. Sometimes you want to be a great painter. And, for some painters, you try to find your own art style and make sure you have faith in it and be driven in that and try to be successful in that. For writers, you could easily copy some of the best writers, whether it's Stephen King or, Crichton or anything like that. But at the end of the day, it has to be your own voice. At least for running, it's just you just have to have that drive, because mom and dad might help you with the financial side of things and try to get you on the team, but they're not out there playing the sport. You are. It's all you. So you kind of have to have a little bit of a drive. And I think for me, like, I definitely am very driven, and especially when it came to running centric, because running came to me at a very impressionable time in my life. It was in junior high. So while other people are going through puberty, I just mutated. And and
Dad joke number two.
yeah, and
for those keeping score at home.
And for me at that time, I kind of felt like I was being overlooked, and and it was very underwhelming. It was very sad. And when I got into running, I got popular from it, and people want to thrive on like being cool and stuff. Even though the life of distance running is all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, so I quickly try to adapt. I quickly try to adapt to that lifestyle. But yeah, I think for me, it really gave me kind of like some sort of like a shine to myself,
Yeah.
and gave me something to grab onto that made me feel seen, which has been super important, and which has been super cool, especially during an impressionable Tyler back in the day.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, so I get it. I mean, this is a common enough story where you strike out, so to speak, at every other sport. Then you
Nice.
find like, I don't suck at running,
Yeah.
and then you start to be funneled, right? It's just like, there's a lot of reinforcement. The coach is like, you're really good. We're counting on you, and then you get the positive feedback. You're probably in the local newspaper, and then, but still, like, there's a spectrum of people who end up channeled in that way, and some of them, maybe their passion isn't all that great. It's just a matter of like, well, now this is what's expected of me. Like, I'm going to try to get a scholarship. I'm going to go to a D1 school and try to be an All-American. But like, it's almost like a matter of like simply following, the path of least resistance, even
Mhm.
though like it is a gift, and it takes a lot of work. And then there are others who are like, oh yeah, I want this bad. Like, I really want to see how far this journey can take me. Where were you in this spectrum?
I would definitely say the latter. I definitely felt like, when I did do baseball and when I did do flag football and I did soccer, when I did the other two, it was like, cool, I'm down to try it once, but I really like baseball. And then when I did baseball, like, my dad paid for like professional hitting coach. And when I did club ball, they put in money and they traveled across the state of Arizona half the time to watch me be a bench former. And that's very, sad. And having like the coach's son start before you was very degrading as well. Not that he was a bad player, but it's just kind of like, give me a chance. All I want is a chance.
Yeah.
And I feel like if there's anything in life, people just want a chance.
Yep.
And I think for running, what really gravitated towards that was, doesn't matter if you're the coach's son, doesn't matter if you have the coolest gear, are you able to run? And for me, I wasn't the coach's son. I didn't have like the flashiest of running gear, but I knew how to run. Like
Mhm.
like that was my shindig. And
Mhm.
so and that's what made me gravitate towards that. But yeah, I think for me it was just kind of like, I want to see how far I can go. In junior high, that's when I found out that running could be a thing in college, which I never knew. Because when you click on, ESPN for college stuff, what is it? Softball, baseball, football, volleyball. But you never see swimming. You never see really track and field. And if you did, it was only one time.
Mhm.
And I never really saw anything about even cross country. So I didn't even fathom that you could run in college until I was in junior high. And I'm like, it'd be kind of cool to like. And
Mhm.
I grew up in Gilbert, Arizona, which is close to ASU, and I grew up a Sun Devils fan. So I was like, it'd be kind of cool to run for the Sun Devils. That would be pretty cool and see how far I can go. So
Mhm.
for me, that was always a drive to strive for the next level. Because when I was in junior high, I was like, well, I want to see if I could strive for college. And then when I was in high school, it was still a strive for college. And when I was in college, I was like, I want to see if I could do this professionally. I want to see
Mhm.
if I'm good enough for a company to be like, we want that guy. And then now that I am a professional, it's been super underwhelming because I haven't been able to achieve
Mhm.
little Tyler's dreams according to my standards. Now, as
Yeah.
we talk, I will go through that my standards have changed, thankfully. But yeah, at the time, it was very sad that I should be happy. I have professional athlete to my name. I had that title, but I don't feel like a professional athlete, and that
Yeah.
was degrading and killing me slowly on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Didn't mean to bring the room down a little bit.
yeah,
So
no, no. I mean, that's like, I mean, this is, we want the real here.
yeah,
Like, this is, we bring the real,
for sure.
and that, yeah. So,
But yeah,
so
I definitely feel like I had that drive. I definitely had that drive to see, like, I want to see how far I can go. Because in my family, I think the highest sporting you can get was like high school. At least for my parents in general. My dad never made varsity wrestling. He made JV wrestling and only to his junior year. And then he got burnt out. And then my mom, and this is back in Iowa, so it was just kind of like, if you wrote your name on the sheet, you had instantly made the team. It wasn't as competitive as it was out here in the Southwest, at least in the Phoenix area. And yeah, my mom, she did every single sport, but the one that she always brags about is being a pom pom gal. But yeah, but my parents were super very different than cheerleaders. They just, yeah, very different. I don't know where, but she says it's very different. But I already knew, like, my parents were into sports. My sister did sports in junior high. Like, it was an active background, but never to the point where they could have gone to college for it. Like, that was
Right.
just insane.
Yeah.
I never thought anyone from the Day family could do that. And also, a weird caveat is, like, growing up, I've never seen my parents run at all. My mom had really bad arthritis in her knees, which in recent years she just got them replaced, which is doing significantly better and has been way active. But yeah, I've never seen my mom run at all. And my dad, I think I could count on one times I've seen him run, and that was to probably chase after me to get out of the road or something. Yeah, growing up, I never thought that anyone in my family was able to run. So when I did it, it was just like, am I supposed to do this? I never seen my family do this. It was very weird, but I'm glad to be able to find it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So when you come at, you sort of like, you're on this ascendant path in your sport, and sort of like the expectations are low just based on the fact that, I mean, it's a kind of naivete, right? Like your milieu did not provide examples of like, oh yeah, like good at running, and then there's the Olympics. For you, it's like, oh wow, it's like stage by stage. So then you get to NAU, and not only are you at one of the premier distance running collegiate programs in the country, but you're kicking ass. Like, I mean, like you're totally crushing it. And like, I've seen this, like, it's not every athlete, but there are some who, they start to rise to that level, and it's like, holy shit, like I could be one of the best in the world. Like some people, like, that's like, oh yeah, when they're 8, they're like, I'm going to be one of the best in the world. But others, they're just like, what am I doing at this level?
Yeah.
And then it can be a little bit of a barrier, actually, that the imposter syndrome thing. Like you have to overcome it. It's like, oh no, I actually belong here. And not only that, I can win, I can beat all of you. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I was 8, I was playing with my Legos. There was no championship feeling there. I was just trying to learn how to count to 100. But yeah, I did have moments like that. So when I was in high school, I saw Galen Rupp get silver at the 2012 Olympics, and I was like, I definitely want to
Wait, you were in high school when that happened?
Yeah. I was going. Yeah, I think I was a sophomore. Yeah, I know. I look my age, I guess. But that really inspired me to be like, I want to be like the next like great American distance runner, because people were freaking out that an American medal at the 10K, and I was like, I think I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was always driven by that. But yeah, when I was in high school, I was slowly getting good in the state of Arizona. And the one moment that was like, I could be a D1 runner was my senior year. I made it to Nike Cross Nationals. And when I made Nike Cross Nationals, started to get colleges that wanted me. Because beforehand, no one from Arizona wanted me, which was kind of interesting, but it is what it is. And yeah, when I made NXN, NAU slid into my Facebook DMs and was like, hey, we'd love to have you on a visit. And I remember people in the running community was like, yo, NAU is really good at running. And I didn't know that. Again, growing up as an ASU fan, I thought NAU was a small school that we kicked their ass in football. But then when I looked into it, NAU was for sure, like, I think that year they podiumed, and I was like, whoa. And then I was like, where was ASU and U of A? And they were like, nowhere to be found. And I was like, okay, like this is very serious, consideration. And so, yeah, if I didn't make NXN, I probably wouldn't have been a lumberjack. So that NXN moment was like, I could be a college athlete. Like, this is great. And so, yeah, I did my college visits. The worst visit I had was at NAU. And I visited Boise State, and then Iowa State really didn't give me time to go on a visit. And when we tried to see what scholarships were, they told me that they didn't know how I was going to pan out in college. So I was like, well, I'm going with NAU, because one, they're offering me a scholarship, and two, they actually believe in me. And then going into NAU, I was scared shitless. I thought I was going to get cut every single day. But I really just, in my head, I was like, I worked way too hard to let this opportunity go away. I'm going to give it all that I got. And then, yeah, further on in college, my dream was to be an All-American and a national champion. And I thought that was going to be after 5 years of college. And I ended up hitting both of those my sophomore year. And I'm like, oh, what now? And it's like, well, let's see if I could do it again. And just kept going with it. And the level in my head where I knew I was going to be a professional athlete, or I had a really good opportunity to be a professional athlete, was 5th year of college. I already had a good resume built for me. I was fortunate enough to be on 3 national winning teams for NAU. I was fortunate enough to be at that point like a 6-time All-American. So I thought I had a good resume, but I still felt like I was, not attractive enough. Like I need to have like that it time.
Mhm.
And then that indoor season, we went to Boston, and the whole entire goal was to just get an NCAA standard. Ended up running with the Nike guys, and I ran 13:16 for the 5K. And I never thought in my whole entire life I was going to run that fast. And when that happened, I was like, I could be a professional athlete now. Like this just opened up doors. Like I just felt all the doors open for me. So and thankfully with those times it was enough for Hoka to be like, yeah, we want that guy. And so I could just remember 2 times in my career where it was just like I have ascended. I'm at this level. I deserve to be at this level. So
Yeah, you can't fake a 13:16 5K.
no, that shit was hard. And then a couple weeks later I went 7:45 for the 3K, and I think it was the first time in my life that I actually had confidence in myself, because I've always struggled with self-confidence even before I was an athlete. And even when I was an athlete, like I think there was a couple times where Coach Smith talked to me in his office. He's like, "Look, man, you're not just this lucky to be here dude from Gilbert anymore. Like you've proven yourself to be good in NCAA. You should own it." And it didn't matter how he said it to me, it was so hard for me to grasp that. And so I've always had trouble with the self-confidence portion of it. But when I hit those times, I was like, I'm going to be an NCAA national champion. Like, I'm totally going to do it. I have faith I can do it. And then this was during 2020. So then went to New Mexico, having a career year, everything is canceled. And it was just kind of like, I mean, at the moment, I was just like, wow, like all my opportunities went away. So myself a pity party. But then, to put everything in perspective, as Coach Smith does, he's like, look, guys, if we're looking at the spectrum of things, like we're absolutely happy because you're healthy and you're not sick. And there's other people who are losing loved ones in the hospital right now because of this coronavirus. So you should be lucky. And I was just kind of instantly like, yeah, I need to shut up and take it. But still a little bit part of me just kind of wish that happened, because I want to see if I could do something on my own, because all my success has been with team stuff, which I'm not mad at all with. I'm very fortunate. I worked very hard for those team titles. And I'm very happy to be a fraction of the puzzle, 1/7 literally of that team success. But I just always want to see if I could do something on my own to have that it factor. But I guess I just got to wait for that.
Yep. Right on. Yeah. So one thing now, this is like the perfect segue.
I am a journalism major, so I have to.
Right on.
I'm good at ushering the story.
Yeah. It's like.
I got you, dog.
Yeah, exactly. I could just be a chat bot, and that's all it would take. So we're going to pivot to the injury portion of the conversation.
Okay.
And one thing I want to be absolutely clear, just as like kind of like more of a friend to friend comments, like injury should not, cannot, and will not define you.
Yeah.
But it's like it's an important topic, and like I really do think that I mean, you would have been here, you would have had your turn on the seat anyway. But I think it's worth hitting this topic just because, like, you've just gone through a lot, and the way you're going through it, not to throw AJ under the bus, but it felt like we had 45 minutes together in that waiting area. It's like I'm rewinding everything we talked about. Like, how long was that actually?
I don't know. I do talk pretty quick. So for those viewing, I'm so sorry if I'm talking 1,000 miles an hour. I'm really trying to slow down. But yeah, maybe I fit a 45 conversation in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Yes, because it couldn't have been longer than 10 minutes.
He's my boy, man. He resurrected me twice. So, but yeah, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So all that to say, like, just reflecting on because I was aware, I've been following your journey since probably before you knew I existed, just like because I'm a Flagstaff guy, and then by extension an NAU guy, and so I knew who you were and what you were doing, and then saw that you got the Achilles injury, and then another one. And I'm like, oh God, like I feel that hits so close to home, just because, for me, like, I mean, injury was kind of the story of my, amateur, career. But one of the things we talked about in that we were 3 years. We were locked in a bank vault together,
Yeah.
like with a copious supply of wine, as I remember it.
Yeah,
and
sure.
we just opened up.
Totally.
Yeah, and before we were rescued, um, I think they used dynamite actually to blow it open. Is that right?
Hey man, I was blacked out, dude. This is your story, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, but right before I think we both blacked out, I was sharing just like one of the things that actually was helpful to me because it's frustrating, when you're hurt and you want, you want to achieve things so badly, and there's like it feels like your body is mutinying against you. Like one of the things that helped me was the fact that I was a coach and I was a writer, and like I felt like, okay, this sucks for me as an athlete, but it actually, I'm learning something that is of value to the people who will read my books or the athletes I will coach. And I think you're very much in a similar position. Like, you're not a coach yet, you're not an author yet, but I think like, you're experiencing something that what you're learning, what you're experiencing, like, definitely has potential value to all runners. So that's why I want to go there. And one of the other things we mentioned, I think it was like on night 3 in the bank vault.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Yeah, was that like you were never like, I mean, you broke the ice spectacularly with injury, because like you were never injured.
No, dude,
right?
not at all.
Yeah,
The
so it's
only
like you went
injury-
straight for the worst possible injury. You could
Yeah,
possibly
I
have.
mean, literally the only thing you consider an injury was I was going. This is a summer going into my sophomore year at NAU, and on paper we were poised to win the national championship. We knew the people that were coming back to our team, and we all had faith. Where it was like, we could probably win it all. Like, this is great. So that summer I had a lot of pressure on myself that I put on myself, and I was like, yeah, I just gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. And during that time, Pokemon Go just came out on the phone. And so I wasn't running, but I was cruising the neighborhood on my bike, and I'm trying to catch a Pidgey on my phone. And so when I scrolled to flick the Pokemon ball or stop for a Pidgey, I grabbed too much of the front brake on my bike and I went over the handlebars. And I didn't get scraped up really. I mean, I did on my hand, but I was like, oh, nothing wrong with it. But I was like, I still got to train. So after going over the handlebars on my bike, I just kept running, and I developed some sort of like pain in my hip. I remember when I came back to NAU, I was limping, and my teammates were calling me out on it. Like, dude, Tyler, like, lack of a better word, like, you look like shit. Like you need help. And I'm getting nervous because I was like, I'm poised to be an All-American. Like, I put so much work. I don't want to like sit out. I don't want to be injured. And what happened was I talked to our trainer, who was like a Marine vet, and he's like, dude, I don't know what's going on. I haven't seen this before. Some weird thing, but all he did was he cradled my leg and he kind of pushed it more into like my hip socket to like to challenge like the squishy donut joint about it. And that helped, because later that year I went on to get 23rd at the NCAA, and we won our first national title. That was my first experience with injury, and the out time was like barely a month, maybe even 2 weeks. That was my only injury story. I never had any stress fractures. Even growing up, I never had any broken bones or torn anything. Even though I'd done stuff that could have alluded to it, I still escaped it. But yeah, this injury is for sure my first major injury, and it's still something I'm still trying to get over. So yeah. Little precursor going into that. So it wasn't just my first injury. My first injury was flipping over the handlebars playing Pokemon Go. But this is the one that's definitely like, if I consider an injury, this is what I would describe a injury.
Yep. Yeah, so I definitely want to focus more on like the coping than the
Okay.
events themselves, but like, briefly,
Yeah.
quickly, like let's see, like go
100%.
hyperspeed.
Okay. Say less about what happened.
Just like, what happened?
Okay, so when I ran 13-16 in college, I was dealing with Achilles soreness, but it wasn't in pain because every single time I ran, it went away. So I was like, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just going to power through it. COVID happened. I went back home to Phoenix, chilled out with my family. And I was like, hey, all these agents are calling me. I should probably try to be ready so I could be marketable. So I tried running, and I live right by a canal system. So every single time I ran, my heel just felt super, super sore, and it wouldn't go away. I don't know what the hell was going on. During that time in August, I signed my contract with NAZ Elite, and I was like, sweet, I'm a professional athlete. And I started running a little bit hardcore now since I'm with the team, and I can't sit on my butt anymore. Now I'm getting paid for it. My heel was still sore, but it sometimes went away. But I was like, I powered through it before in college, is going to be great. December of 2020, I ran a track race. I already had 2 races before with NAZ Elite, and I fared very well. But I tried to hit the Olympic A standard in the 10K because I already qualified for the 5K off my 13:16 for the trials. So I knew I already have a way into the trials. About 7K, 8K into the race, I tried to make a move around the guy and my ankle gave out. I didn't hear a pop, but I felt the strength of my ankle go. And I walked off the track and I felt this stinging pain radiate from my ankle. The next day it swelled up like a grapefruit and I thought I just overstressed it. So went to AJ, what the heck do I do? He got me back into this back to running regime, did a bunch of walks in December that led into January and February. I learned how to run again, but the stinging still didn't leave me. I didn't know what was going on. Finally, it was one of the major workouts. This is April. The trials are going to be in June. I was like, I just have to get ready for the 5K. And I couldn't get past like a K workout. And it absolutely killed me. Took an MRI, 7 millimeter partial tear in my Achilles going north to south. Ended my season, watched the trials from the couch with my parents in a boot. I thought I just had to be 3 months in the boot. So I was like, all right, cool. This is going to be great. 3 months out of the boot, able to pinch the tendon. Tendon was good. Great. Met an ankle specialist. The specialist was like, hey, you're going to have ankle problems because you have bone spurs in your heel called Haglund's deformity. We need to get it out. And I was like, okay. So in September of 2021, went in, got the operation done. It takes a full year to recover. So this is going to be September of 2022. I could physically think about running again. I'm able to run about 5 or 6 months afterward, but still I would not be 100% healed. So first time having surgery on anything, going through the stresses of that, made it out okay, flying colors, cool. Try to get back into running. When I was trying to get back to running, I asked my first surgeon, how should I get back into running? And he told me, your body will let you know. I trust you're a professional athlete. That's something you shouldn't say to a dude that's never had surgery before. But okay, I rolled with it because I've seen his stuff work with someone else who was a Nike athlete. Try to get back into running. And the heel that was on the outside of my ankle was gone. Cool, great. Flipped on the inside of my other side of the ankle and I felt the pain again. And I was like, what is going on? I thought I got surgery. This should be fixed, whatever. Went to a bunch of specialists this time. This time I met up with a doctor in California that did a lot of people's Haglund's deformity. And he told me you have bone spur again. And this was in December. So when I tried running again in September, it was very off and on. And when I try to go hardcore training run that back, I'll be 100% healed in September. But when I was running in April of 2022, that's when the pain came back. So I stopped running. And then in December, I got the phone call from the surgeon from California telling me I need surgery again. And at that point, I was contemplating, why am I still going through with this? This is beating me up. I should just retire. Like, I'm sick and tired of this. I'm done. I haven't had anything to show for it for my 2 years of being on the team. At that point, I was really contemplating retirement and I was just so distressed. But I was like, you know what? I'm 26. I have support from the team. I'm going to go through with it again. February of this year, got the surgery done. And this time, it was a way more invasive process than last time. So it was longer in the boot, longer trying to get back to walking. But the surgeon gave me a 20-week, literally Bible of what I'm going to abide to from that. So right now on this journey, I'm on the point of getting ready to alter G. I'm able to do everything except for run. And so far on this healing journey, it's been better than the last time, both ankle wise. I'm able to do calf raises without feeling any pain. I can't remember the last time I had that feeling. That's try to be in a nutshell. I know I probably went a little bit too long, but
that's a lot.
That's so from December of 2020 to now, it was a partially torn Achilles that healed, 2 surgeries, one that halfway worked out, but another thing arose. And the second one for sure like worked out, but it was a way gnarlier surgery than the last one was.
Yeah.
And I'm sticking with that story.
Yeah, right on. I'm
sorry for those that can't keep up at home. I try to buzz through it.
Yeah, I think I followed. So it was your elbow?
Yeah. I needed Tommy John and
I'm sorry. I spaced out a bit.
big bolt.
Yeah, like all joking aside, so like I mean that is a lot. And I mean it's one thing if you are, a hobbyist. Another in your position with all the pressures you have on you. So I mean you didn't retire. You contemplated it, but you didn't.
I was actually this close about calling Ben and be like, I'm done. I'm so sorry that you took a chance on me in 2020. I couldn't provide. And I was thinking about what I was going to tell Mike McManus, who's the head of Hoka, and be like, sorry for taking a risk on me. And I'm so sorry it didn't work out. And I'm sorry like I failed at this. But then I really just kind of sat down. I was like, I'm young enough and I know I have something to prove. Now, if I had to do a third time, different story. Like I would be like, I'm out. This wasn't made for me. The fantasies didn't work out. But no, I did contemplate. I really did contemplate, which I never thought ever in my life that I would ever have that discussion at 20 something, especially having a college career like I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you had to have held on to something.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, because it's just such a commitment, you know, to like, you know, just grinding along that path with a lot of uncertainty. Like, you don't know how it's going to end. You hope it will end a certain way, but like, is there like a single thing like above everything else that you have held on to that has, you know, motivated you and inspired you through the process?
Part of it might be just ego. Part of it might be just maybe be too prideful. Because I know in my running journey, I was the one that ran the races, but my parents were the ones that drove me to the races. And my sister, you know, she's an older sister, and she could have easily done so many like better things than wait for hours to watch me run 8 laps in high school, you know. But she was such a supportive sister, and my family sacrificed a lot, so I didn't have to call them sacrifices. I call them opportunities. And all the coaches from junior high to high school to college and then in between who took their time out of their day to focus on me and wanted to work with me. Um, and just the fact of like I've come so far, and yeah, and just like I want to have a professional season. I want to just one day hold my head up high and tell people I'm a professional athlete and not feel like I'm trying to convince them I'm a professional athlete because like, oh, but I did this in college, like
Right.
I proved this worth. So for me, what really holds me on is just I have a lot to prove to the people that help me support me out. Now, not one of them been like, oh, if you don't do this, like all we've done gone to
Sure.
waste. They're like, hey, whatever, you know, decision you have, we support you. But I'm just too much of a prideful person, man. I'm too much of a dude that's just like, you know, I like, you know, Hoka's took their time on me, and I just want to at least give something to Hoka to be like, here's a standard that you could be proud about, you know. So ego, pride, maybe being too much of a tryhard, not knowing when to quit, all those things. Because in all of my life, and especially in running, if I did anything that was just for me, I would give up easily. No problem. But when it came to team results, I was like, I don't want to let the team down. And I remember talking with Mike Smith. He's like, the reason why you were crazy in cross country because you had the fear of God in you, because you didn't want to let anyone down.
Right,
And you go to the means of the earth to do it. There's been many times in solo track races where I'd be in the middle of it, and I would be like, oh man, like this is tough. Like woe is me. While in cross country, it was like, I'm not letting Matt Baxter down. I'm not letting Mike Smith down. I'm not letting the Lumberjacks down.
Right.
Like I'm doing this for my team. So I think if I had just have a team mindset and knowing is like the world doesn't evolve around me, it's, you know, I'm part of it. That is what get me out of the bed. Because if it's just me, I'll just stay in bed, which in the beginning parts of my coping mechanisms, it was very self-loathing and very not team oriented, and it was very unhealthy, which I could try to get into in these next further questions. But
yeah, well, actually, like that's let's do that before we get to the happy ending yet to come.
Yes, sir.
I mean, because like I mean that's like, I mean, you can have some, I mean, when, you know, when running is that important to you, and like, you know, like just like, you know, it's not that different to be a pro and to have a shoe contract. Honestly, like running is supreme. Like, look at these two, our dream runners here who like traveled long distances, took time out of their lives, you know, away from family to come here. Like, you know, that speaks for itself. Like, you know, running, it's like, you know, there's a lot at stake. Like, it's like you invest, professional or not, you invest so much in it. You know, it's not a sport for the faint of heart. That's why we choose baseball first.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, when things aren't, you know, when things just go horribly wrong, like it can get really dark, you know, and like, but that doesn't have to be the end of the story. But it's like, well, something, if it isn't the end of the story, like something has to lead to the next step. So, you know, talk about, you know, just, you know, what have been your absolute darkest, lowest moments, and how have you gotten past them? And maybe this is your very darkest moment.
Yeah.
Sitting here talking,
facing my demons.
No, it is for most of my guests.
Yeah. So there's a lot that I really can't share because it's way too personal. It's going to be another story for another day. But what I can share is this. I think for me, especially now, like I feel like the whole entire reason I'm being interviewed here is because I'm a professional athlete, and my whole entire identity has been wrapped into running, which has been great. It's been something that's been carefully cultivated by me, something that I've earned the right to say. But I also use running as a coping mechanism for all my struggles in life. If I had anything that was burdening me in school or something I needed to think about, I would just go out on a run. If I have anything I want to run from, I physically did it. And it worked for a while, and it worked great. But now when my original coping mechanism is gone, because, with Achilles surgery, I can't even get out of bed. Yeah, I was very unhealthy, especially after my first surgery. It was just kind of like, I cannot wait to watch the 10K Olympic trials and see my dream physically run away from me. And seeing the three dudes who represented the United States very well in Tokyo, that was the best team ever, and I'm very happy for them. Those are dudes I actually ran against in college, and a lot of them, and some of them I did beat. And so I saw myself up in there, and a lot of that was just, that definitely tore at me too. And that was the start of like my Ahab like quest to just get back to running, where it wasn't fueled on love, it wasn't fueled on nurture, and it wasn't fueled on good anything. It was fueled on vengeance, it was fueled on anger, it was fueled on self-loathing, and it was fueled on everything negative and dark. And it was just very tough because I've had people come up to me and it's just out of regurgitate the same things over and over again, like, oh, I'm not running and blah blah blah, but like, oh, I'm still a professional athlete though. I did this in the
Look
past.
at my shoes.
Yeah,
See?
yeah, 100%.
I got these for free.
And so after I got done with the first surgery, it was just, my mind was like, okay, well, I don't have to do this again. I don't need another surgery. I already got the one. I know it's gonna work. I got to get through this shitter. And when I came back to running again, I felt pain again. I immediately went back into a spiral, and then the ultimate another dark part was in December when I heard I had to get surgery again. I remember I wrote down notes about it. When it got done, I took the notepad and I chucked it across the room. And my girlfriend at the time was sitting on the bed, and she was like, "Do you need a hug?" And I was like, "I just want to be alone." And whew, that was tough. Yeah, with the second surgery, yeah, I got it, and it was just start off where I left off on the self-loathing and stuff, and it got to the point where it wasn't going to change, and it was just really tough, and eventually it led to me losing my relationship with my girlfriend to know that I have a problem and I need to fix it. And so since then, I've actually hired on a therapist who's been great. So if you all have seen Good Will Hunting, I found my Robin Williams, and that's been helping a lot. And then obviously having the continued support from NAZ Elite and Oka was just great. But yeah, it was tough. I'm doing better now, but it's just tough to think in the past. It's just like, man, could have handled this shit better. So
Yeah. Yep. I mean, maybe not.
One of the things that like I do with long COVID is like I sometimes wish there was a competition with 99 other participants in it where everyone's experiencing exactly what I'm experiencing. It's like, how am I actually coping? Like, because it's ugly, but it's like maybe I'm actually doing okay because I'm a human being.
I think the worst part too was since getting Achilles surgery, there were people where I'm not the first one to get Achilles surgery, and I'm not going to be the last. But during that 10-year, I know the saying that comparison is the theft of joy. And I was constantly being my own robber because I would be looking on social media and there would be people that had Achilles surgery. And the duration of them getting cut open, healing, and back to running was during my duration of like my first one. And that just angered me so much because and they were immediately run like world class times. And I just learned to walk on my tippy toes, or I just learned to walk from the fridge without eating shit. Like that was what really got me, was just the comparison fact. And also just comparison with like my teammates where they're able to work out and run. And it's just like, man, I want to help them on the workout. But like, I just learned how to I remember after my second Achilles surgery, I drove to the track, and that drive to the track, the first time after surgery was the first time I drove in my car. So when people are like, oh, Tyler, how far along in your surgery? And I was like, I just learned how to walk yesterday, and I just learned how to drive like right now. So it's just like tough. And especially when people are like coming up to me, and I get it, like a bunch of like high school kids like, oh, how are you doing on your training segment? I just tell them like, I just learned how to walk in like April. I learned how to drive a car in April, and I'm about to do Alter G now, but yeah, it's been super tough. And especially it's just like, love my teammates. They are rock stars. And even though I do feel isolated half the time when it came to this shit, it was because of how I put upon myself. My bad, I didn't mean to punch your microphone. It was probably how I felt by myself. Never once have the upper management of Hoka or NAZ Elite has ever said anything to me. Never once has my like teammates been like, "Hey man, like might be on the road." Like they've been nothing but supportive, and the same thing with my family members. But there were times where like even now, like I actually stopped watching races for them because it just hurt me too much. So I can't wait for the day where I could actually participate with them and actually watch races again. But yeah, it's just been tough. So yeah.
Yeah, so your allusion to reaching out for a therapist segues into where I wanted to go next. Actually, it was like how like part of it, like there's all the like the emotional stuff, like just like I mean that's the thing. Like the thing I like when I talk with athletes I coach who are going through injury, it's like sitting here talking to me right now on this coaching consultation, does anything hurt? They're like, no.
Yeah.
It's like, so it's actually, injury is actually mostly a psychological thing.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean?
I mean, during this duration, after my first surgery, like my mind was constantly on my ankle and it was killing me. And since the second surgery, it's kind of a blessing in disguise with my personal self-esteem problems and me spiraling to lose a relationship. It actually took my focus away from my Achilles, which is a good thing. Because since then, like my Achilles have been healing like that. So it's just kind of like if you bring power to something negative, it's going to be bigger than what you think. But again, it's I still have other things to worry about. I'm trying to heal up here, and hopefully this heals with it. But now I'm not just constantly like beating the crap out of my right foot. Now it's just kind of like I need to focus on the mentally up here because yeah, with running, it was a really important thing in my life. And a lot of my decisions was because of running. It was just like, oh, can we go on this vacation? No, because there's no running spots here. It was like my life. And especially when I got injured and, my ex-girlfriend was just kind of like, hey, like maybe we could think about maybe try to get a house or something, trying to help me, like try to live. And for me, I was like, well, I once I start running again, I'll make the decisions instead of learning to live without having running on there. So when I come back on this time, it's not like I'm not going to give a crap about running anymore. I obviously will because it's my job. But hopefully I don't give it a lot of power like I had before.
Right.
And then with the ankle, like I know that when I line up on the line with anybody, it's really, you shouldn't project on your competition. You shouldn't assume on your competition. But I know that on any race I've gone to, on any professional circuit, no one will ever have to go through the hell that I had. And that's going to make me way tougher for it. And all the stuff that I lost during my spiraling is going to make me tougher for it because I know I'm going to be a better person because of what I've learned.
Yep.
It's just sad at how I had to learn it, but sometimes trial by fire is the best thing. Phoenix rises from the ashes, so you have to burn in the first place. So,
yep. For some reason, I'm thinking of my dad right about now, who's about to turn 80. He has Parkinson's disease, and on Mother's Day last year, not this year, he fell because of the Parkinson's, broke his femur, had to have surgery. The dude at that point is 78 and has Parkinson's, and the surgeon's like, well, get used to a wheelchair because like that's, but the surgeon didn't know my dad,
of course,
who did like, he's just a warrior, did these like crazy solo open water swims when he was a young adult, went on to become a Navy SEAL, started running marathons.
Trying to tell the Navy SEAL to relax is like trying to tell a bull not to go into the China shop and freak out.
Yeah. But, like my dad is like, so he can walk, I think he's up to close to 2 miles and walk now.
Yeah.
And like, this is like after someone said like, you won't walk again because of the demographics or, like, just like I've seen a bunch of people in your situation. So all this to say like, when you're dealt an injury, it remains to be seen. No one can tell you, how it's going to end. And two things matter. Like one is the will of the injured person. And the second is like actually the X's and O's, like doing it smart.
Yeah.
And so as we kind of wrap up here, can you talk about like, this is really sort of like, the takeaway for those of you?
For sure. Yeah. So what I mean, I think if anything, it's just try to give yourself some grace whenever you can. But I think the biggest thing I've learned is like I'm a pretty strong-willed person. Even when running was great or bad, I always found a way to get out of the door and work, work, work. But when it gets to the point where you lose that, try to surround yourself with others that are positive. Because I know for me, like there were days where I learned just to put on a happy face. There were days where, yeah, it wasn't sunshine and rainbows. A lot of days that weren't like sunshine and rainbows. But I just knew for me, it was just kind of like, if I'm not there for my teammates, that's going to make me a worse of a person. That's just how I feel. I mean, obviously, if you're like, hey, I don't want to see anything about running or other people, that's how you cope. That's how you vibe. Good. I hope you're healthy enough with it. But I know for me, it's just like a rising tide raises all ships. And I know that even though my dinghy has a hole in it, hope that can help the ship that, maybe has a, broken ballast that I could try to help fix with my own hands.
Well, you're working that metaphor.
I know. I mean, Moby Dick's my favorite book, so I gotta like find a way with some nautical nonsense. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's anything. It's just kind of like there's a lot of things that you could give yourself shame and guilt about for some of the things that you've done in the past. But if you don't learn from it, the tears are not worth it. So it's just trying to actively learn from your mistakes, trying to forgive yourself from the mistakes, and then just try to be, a good version of yourself in the future. And again, like try to stay positive, but if anything, it's just I think the biggest thing that I've learned is try to stay content. There's a lot of time in my life where I try to chase happiness, and especially in the injury and surgery stuff, when I wasn't happy, it was just a quick spiral into the pit. While if I just learn how to be content, and it's just like, oh man, like I'm in this rough spot right now, but I'm not going to spiral because I'm in a good spot right now. I'm above ground. Everything's going good. I'm content with that. So right now, I'm really trying to learn how to be content, and maybe all should, if you're in a tough spot, learn to be content. Even it's easy to be content when everything's good, right?
Yes.
But I think the part is trying to be content when things are not good. You don't have to be happy. You don't have to fake happiness, but just learn to be like, I know I'm going to be okay. It's just tough right now.
Yes. Right on. Well said. So yeah, I would. Yes. Do you have a question?
Wait till you ask for questions.
No. Like I was going to wrap up. So go ahead.
All right. If anyone has any questions, I'll try to put in a little bit lighter mood after. Just yeah. So.
So I don't know. It's kind of a question, but
Okay.
First off, thank you for sharing.
Oh, no problem.
It's relatable.
I've had a lot of practice.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think we've all been through something like that necessarily.
I hope you don't. I hope you have surgery. It's like wisdom teeth, where the success rate is like 100%. So.
But very relatable. So I just really appreciate you sharing.
Thanks.
It's not easy. But I wanted to point out that I found it really interesting that you described yourself as having like an ego and like pride, and you use those words, but just as a listener here,
Okay.
like the words that I would describe, just hearing you speak and just your demeanor have been gratefulness, humility, grace, and wisdom. And so it's beautiful to see, and I'm sure that that's been, I mean, you've said it, it's been a hard journey to get there. Can you kind of speak to that? Is that something that you think came about through the therapy, or does that resonate?
Totally. Yeah. So I would say before therapy and before even the injuries, I know on the outside, people would be like, oh, he's very like humble and stuff. But there were times just kind of like nothing will ever come between me and my running training. And that's very like selfish, and that's very like ego driven, I feel like. But first off, thank you for the compliments. I appreciate it. But a lot of it has to deal with like therapy, and also a lot of it has to deal with, my ex. She was a wonderful person, and a lot of the things that I'm just learning, she's always had. I was just blind to see it because, again, I was on my revenge quest to get back. And I put running before, and a lot of good things came before, and I was like, oh, like I'm just going to do it again. It's always worked in the past. But yeah, when I got burned from it, it was like I need a better copingism. I need to grow the hell up. So a lot of it has come with the therapy. A lot of it has come with time. A lot of it has come with not only the first surgery, definitely not after the first surgery, but after the second surgery. Just on this effort of like the healing quest of not just my ankle, but just for my headspace as well. So yeah, definitely. I wasn't this type of Tyler a couple of years ago. Like I would say it, I would preach it, and you'd be like, oh wow, would I do it? No, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. Right on. So we got pizza on the menu tonight and vegetables.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Let's just take the vegetables off the pizza and just have it straight.
The pizza and vegetables.
All right, cool. Well, we'll just have the
Side.
rabbits eat the vegetables. I'll just take the. No, I kid. Stay in school, eat your veggies.
Yeah, but just by way of wrapping up, I would like to say that, I, for one, Tyler, like, I care about you more as a human than I do as an athlete. Like,
Appreciate it.
I'm rooting for you as an athlete
Thank you.
because I care about you as a person. I just think you're a terrific, deserving guy. You've got a bright future ahead of you. And, plan B might be a future, without professional running. But plan A, plan A is plan A.
Oh no, I'm still trying to stick with. I mean,
Yeah.
again, there's a little ego of me. I still have something to prove.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully I could prove it in a much healthier sense. So
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean,
plan A is still, I still no office job for me in the near future. Trying to avoid
Yes.
that. No growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I very much want to see that, but in the spirit of you're wise to want to surround yourself with positive people. Like, I hope your circle has expanded. Like,
Definitely. Yeah, it has. It has. Yeah. Yeah, it has.
right on. Well, thank you so much. This is, I
Thanks,
think
man.
this has been,
Thanks for everybody.
This is going to be like on our greatest hits album, I think.
Hopefully I kept it tasteful in that too, Jerry, at the end, but I try to front load
I try to
it.
cuss first.
Yeah.
So that,
Well, I try to make sure I keep it to the S word because if we're going to go that route, I can be, we could be C16, but that's going to be a rated R version. And, I want this to be for everyone. It's going to be rated E for everybody. So I try to make it like that.
right on. So, thank you again. We're going to have some fucking great pizza now. And tune in next week for another episode of Live from Dream Run Camp.
Thanks, y'all.